Another really cool thing about this is if you have something you don't want anybody to find, you can go ahead and hide it in there, and then nobody will know that your secret goodies are in your shelf. Today, we're gonna make floating shelves. So this is a very easy floating shelf to construct. I'm gonna show you how in a few simple steps. So for this build, I'm using a set of Dremel tools. This is part of their blueprint line. I've got the saw station, portable saw station. I've got the Dremel blueprint drill. This also has a stud finder in it, super handy, and a laser level. So it's perfect for hanging shelves. And then I'm using their blueprint multi-tool. This has a sander unit on it. So you can use it for sanding, you can use it for cutting, really multi-purpose tool. But all three of these tools is basically all you need to make this particular project. Now for assembling, I'm using these GRK fasteners. This is a number 8x2 finish head screw. What's great about these is you don't necessarily need to pre-drill, although I do like to pre-drill for stuff like this. You're gonna be left with a very small hole that you can easily fill with wood filler. Then I'm using these 3.5-inch pan head screws to attach the bracket to our wall studs. For this project, you only need 4 boards. You need 2 6-foot 1x2s and then 2 3-foot by 1-foot boards. Take one of the 1x2s, cut it to 3 feet, basically the same width of the board that you're using. If you're going 2 feet, then cut it 2 feet. Basically what you want is you want this to be the same length as the board. That's gonna be the front part of the shelf. And then for the sides, you're gonna cut these to 11 1/4. These are 3/4 of an inch thick. And obviously our board's 1 foot wide, so 11 3/4, that'll give us 12 inches. The first step is we're gonna take this board, we're gonna lay it flat, take a little wood glue. Now I have a square just so that I can make sure that when I glue down the board that I'm staying squared to it, because the trick here is we're not using a nail gun. We're just gonna use screws to secure all this stuff together. The wood glue though is gonna set pretty quick. I'm using a Gorilla wood glue that's in this bottle. So the first step I'm gonna go ahead and do is apply some glue. And we're just going to set it like that. Now I'm gonna kind of press down a little bit, make sure that the edge is flush right here. I'm gonna hold it just for a second, and that wood glue is gonna start to work. It's pretty quick. Now, if you wanna go even faster than that, you can just take some CA glue and spray, and boom, you'll be done super quick. But because this is a shelf, I'm gonna use wood glue, and then we are gonna screw everything together, so it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Take my square here. So as you can see, as long as your cut is straight, then it should be lined up perfectly fine. I'm gonna do the exact same thing down here at the other end, put a little bit of glue on the end, press it down, and make sure that it's flush with the edge right here. Hold that in place for just a second. Use the square again, make sure that it's all lined up. Okay, now that that's done, the glue is gonna be strong enough to hold it. We're just gonna set this off to the side over here. For now, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take one of our shelves, and it's up to you, just pick the side that you want to be on the top. If it's got a certain grain or look and you want that to be the part that's shown, make sure that that's flip down. So for this one, I want this to be the inside part. So I'm just gonna lay it down like this. And we're gonna take our glue and we're gonna go along the edge just like this. Now, if you need to, you can imagine there being a 3/4 of an inch space, but that's where you want your glue. So I'm just gonna go right along the edge. Doesn't need to be a lot because we're gonna use some screws here in a second to hold it into place. That's it. Now we'll take what we just glued, and as you can see, the wood glue is already doing its job, and we're just going to press this into place. Okay, so I have my drill here. What I want to do, because I did notice that this board, it's a little warped, I'm gonna go ahead and drill a little hole like that. And I'm gonna use finishing screws. Now these are trim head screws. They're a 2-inch GRK fasteners. I love these because it leaves a very small hole. There you go. So now I've got that together here. I'm gonna go over here and do the exact same thing. I'm gonna take another one of those screws. There we go. go. You can see because of that warp, it's wanting to kind of lift up here. Nothing's ever perfect, so I'm gonna take my glue, I'm gonna go ahead and go around the edge here, and then I'm gonna lay that board down. We'll put some screws and then we'll flip it over. Go ahead and lay a bead of glue. Now, if you have a nail gun, you can go ahead and use a nail gun. That works just as well. It's faster, but for this project, we're using screws, so we're gonna do this here. Same thing, we're just gonna sandwich it together. Now, what you wanna do is you wanna try and make sure that this stays as flush as possible. I'm gonna start first here at the front. I'm gonna start here in the center. Same trim head screw. Perfect. Now, because I put a screw here, I don't wanna go at the very edge. I wanna go a little bit further in, maybe about an inch. Now I'm gonna go down to this end and do the exact same thing. And now with that done, I can move on to the side. So one thing you can do, if this board happens to have like a little bit of a curve to it or something like that, go ahead and insert another screw here, or wherever it is that you need it, just for that added security. But just a few is fine. The glue is gonna do its job to hold it. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this over, just like that. Now I'm gonna take my drill, I'm gonna do the exact same thing I did on the other. Now I'm mindful of where my screw went from the other side, so the chances of hitting that same screw is slim to none, but you just don't wanna go in the same spot. And go somewhere around the middle. Put the screws in. Once these two screws are in, we're done for now. We're just gonna let that glue dry, and then we'll sand everything. All right, now, as you can see, we've got our shelf. The only thing we need to do is just sand it around the edges and make sure it's smooth enough so we can apply our edge banding to cover up that joint. So for the edge banding, what's gonna make this front face look like natural wood, I'm using a 3-inch birch edge band. Now I picked this up on Amazon, we'll put a link to it, but basically there's a glue adhesive on one side of it. What I did was I started at one end and then just started to wrap it around. Now the tricky part is ironing it, because this is heat reactive, right? So you have to heat this up so that that glue adheres to the wood. So when you sand this down, a couple of tricks is not to go with a really fine grit. You want a little bit of roughness on that wood so that that glue adheres well. Two, make sure that your iron doesn't have water in it, because you don't want steam coming out on top of the wood. But you do need to let it set for a little bit. You can actually apply this directly to the edge banding as you work your way around. And what I found very useful was using another piece of wood that was flat and sanded to help me basically press in as I ironed, so I wasn't using my hand on the hot spots. Once that's set, you're gonna use something like this. This is just a Bandit trim tool. It has a razor blade and basically a slot for you to run alongside that edge banding and trim off that excess that's on either side. Once that's trimmed, take a little bit of sandpaper and just work it along the edge, and that will remove any little bit that this trimmer didn't get. Once that's done, we're ready to start applying the stain. Now to get this type of a finish, I used 2 different products, both by Minwax. What I ended up doing was using a Simply White stain on the top. It's an oil base. And I just used a rag to apply it and get a nice smooth finish. Now because we used wood edge banding, you can apply it to the edge banding as well, and you get this nice even look all around the piece. To finish it off, I ended up going with a polyacrylic by Minwax. This is a satin finish. What you want to do while you're applying it is sand between coats if it feels rough after applying the clear coat. Wipe that off with either a clean rag, something to get the dust off, and then reapply more coats. As you build up that coat, you're going to notice a really nice sheen start to come through. That's going to protect it and make these last for a long time. Now for the bracket, we're just going to take the other 1x2 and we're gonna cut that to 34 inches. And the reason why is because we want a little bit of wiggle room inside of the shelf. So that way, if we need to mount it, we're not super tight on the inside. We've got about 1/4 inch on either side to adjust the shelf. So cut this main piece to 34 inches, 3 more pieces to 10 inches. What I did here to support the inside part of the bracket was cut some extra pieces 1 1/4 inches. That way I was able to glue it, and it gives that just a little bit more support on the inside part of the bracket. Once you're gluing this up, same thing as before, we're just gonna take these pieces, apply a little bit of wood glue, set it in place, hold that firm for just a second, and then we're gonna proceed all the way down and make sure all those pieces are glued in place. We're not gonna screw anything together yet, we're just gonna let the glue do its work. Once it's glued up, set it aside, let it dry for a few minutes, and then we're gonna come back and add some screws. What we'll do is we'll flip it over this way, and we're gonna take our drill. The bit that I'm using to pre-drill all my holes is a 1/8 inch bit. We're gonna go ahead and make a couple of holes here, and then we're going to use our 2-inch finish nails as the support in these pieces. So we're gonna drill 2 holes at each part of the supporting bracket, screw those in. Once you have everything screwed together, you're just gonna wanna give it a nice sanding. If you find that for some reason it's a little tight trying to work it into the shelf, then go ahead and sand it a little bit until you feel it to where it's a little firm sliding in, because you want it to fit snug but not super loose. All right, here's our shelf and here's the bracket. I'm gonna show you exactly how I installed the bracket to the wall. Now what I used were these 3.5 inch GRK screws. They have a pan head on this side. That way it really locks the back of our bracket into place. First thing you wanna do is you wanna find the stud in the wall. Now that's really important because that's gonna be the strongest part of the wall when attaching your bracket. I figured out where my studs were located, marked that first on the bracket, pre-drilled holes, and then started with the centermost screw and screwed that in. After that, that allowed me to level out the shelf and then screw in the other 2 stud locations on this particular shelf. With that installed, you can see this bracket is not going anywhere. It's really firm in place. All we need to do to put the shelf on is just slide it in. Now, the other cool thing about this particular design is you don't have to worry about the bracket being dead center. I designed it so that you've got a little bit of wiggle room on either side so that you can center it up after you've installed it. As you can see here, I can slide my shelf back and forth about 1/2 inch to either side. So all you gotta do is get that bracket close to center, and then you can adjust after the fact. Now, if you're really concerned about these coming off of the wall or anything like that, which they won't because any weight that's applied is gonna keep it in place, you can always drive a securing screw into the back. Just pre-drill a hole back here in the top part and put a screw in. That'll keep that firmly so that nobody can yank it off your wall. I hope you enjoyed this build. This is a really fun project, super easy. As you see, we only need a few tools to do it. And these can be made in any size. So they don't have to be 3 feet. They can be 1 foot. They can be shorter. It's totally up to you. You just take this design and build it to your liking. But we'll list all the products on Amazon so you can find them, everything that we use for this build. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Check us out on the next tutorial.